All right, hello everyone, welcome back to the stream. I already see some familiar faces in the chat here, but before we get into what we're doing today, I want to remind everyone that I'm trying to be a full-time indie game developer, and my first real commercial release, Gunforged, is available for sale. It's a fantasy roguelite shooter with a lot of goofy elements. Definitely check that out if you're interested. There's a demo, and if you purchase it, that supports me greatly. And if you end up playing it, please consider leaving a review. Got another review since yesterday, which is nice. And also, Gunforged is now part of 2 bundles. So you can get Genome Guardian and Gunforged together, or you can get Gunforged and Cubed and Dangerous together. So you could get two games for a reasonable price. Probably will be added to more bundles in the future. So yeah. Anyway, so definitely check that out if you're interested. I'd very much appreciate that. I also have my Udemy courses available for sale. Those are linked in the description below, as well as the Steam page for Gunforged. So yeah, you can take a look at those if you want to learn how to build a complete game in the Godot engine. All right. Hello, everybody. So let's see. What are we going to do? Hello, Aniki. Welcome back. Solo Leveling. Good to see you. Luca. Yup. I missed that yup message every morning. Hello, Hebo. Welcome back to you as well. Yayan. Any reason why you always use pixel art style? That's a good question. Welcome to the stream, by the way. Yeah, the main reason is that it's just easier to do. I haven't really tried my hand at doing more like illustrated style. I think that I could probably create some decent illustrated art based on what I've learned doing pixel art. But I think pixel art is just, it's easier to get a style that looks good and the art doesn't take that long to produce. But, you know, like I said, it's possible with an illustrated style I could get good at that, but it's just what I'm comfortable with at the moment and what I'm proficient in or gaining proficiency in, so that's the reason. Good morning, Craig. Welcome back to you as well. Good to see everyone. Okay, so what am I doing? So yesterday we were working our way towards the boss. So I was creating this level progression indicator here. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to implement this into the game, and then we'll see if we can get a boss fight built. And that's going to be a good way of sort of tying the whole loop together. So again, the progression system is you'll do a couple of events here, and then what? Yeah, you do a couple of events, and then you fight an enemy, and then you'll do a couple more events, fight an enemy, a couple more events, fight an enemy, so on and so forth until the boss here, which I'm just going to fill this in really quick. Oops, not like that. So let's see. Might be too dark. Let's try flipping. Well, oh, you know what I need? This needs a nose. There we go. I don't like his Neanderthal brow there, so I'll probably just delete that. Let's see. Okay, that looks fine. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, so we'll do that. I wonder if I should make his cranial a little bit larger. Nah. We'll keep that like that. Okay. All right, so I need to move a couple of these things. So this, I'll just create separate layers for this. So let's do arrow indicator. So there's the arrow. I don't like that. Copy that. Candle unlit. Okay, let's do the candle lit now. And then we need the sword. Okay, sword. I'll just call this one unlit as well. It's not exactly the correct word to use, but that's okay. All right, and then we need the skull. Skull, what am I calling it? Unlit. Here. And then we're going to need to create a skull lit as well. So we'll do this. Do a color replacement there. Oh. Okay. Color replacement from that to that. And then color replacement from that to that. Do I want to do that? Actually, this should probably be white like that. But I don't have any highlights now for this. Might keep the blue. Maybe I'll just do... It kind of looks weird, but that's all right. That's all right. The most important thing is that it's brighter. Okay. So we'll copy this over and then call this skull lit. Okay, perfect. And then we can hide these things. So there's our icons. I should probably fill in at least these here. Oops. All right. So now what I can do is I can export all these scripts, export layers, save sprite. We'll let that go. Hello, Snuff Bill. Thank you for the IDR 20,000 again. Very much appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. And with the message yummers as well. We always appreciate that, don't we, folks? Still doing good guy, but baddie chain for bosses like Knight and then Lord, King, or whatever. Yeah, I think so. I just need to get around to doing all that art and developing those cards. But I think for thematic purposes, I think that's going to be good. Yummers indeed, yes. How much revenue does your YouTube channel produce? Is it more than your published games? Not... I mean, it was until the release of Gunforge, but yeah, YouTube is like... a good month is like $200 a month. So it's not nothing. It covers groceries for a good chunk of the month, so that's nice. Shouldn't the candle be well lit? Yeah, I'm gonna add a particle effect for the candle. So that's not gonna be covered in this art here. How do you see the so-called new genre Balatro-like? Well, I didn't know that was a burgeoning genre. So you're talking about like traditional card games or like, yeah, traditional card games that are turned into roguelikes or roguelikes that are inspired by traditional card games and dice games and stuff. I think that's fun. I think that's a very good, I mean, this is the kind of thing that can only be really created by indie developers, right? You're not going to see a AAA game, AAA studio make a Balatro-like, but an indie developer can, and you know, I like it. I think it's good. I think it's great. Any plans to enable membership for YouTube? I might soon. I have to think of like proper perks and everything for the memberships and whatnot. Hello, Pragyan. Welcome back. Good to see you. All right, so let's bring this into Godot. Now we're going to need to create a progress indicator. Do I want to put that in the game UI? The game UI is getting kind of cluttered here. But I suppose it will be fine. I'll just create a separate scene for it. Let's create a new scene. Let's do an HBox container. And we're going to do progress, run progress. Bar, I guess. Where did I put this? Level progression. So let's create a new folder. Level progression. Okay. So we got the run progress bar here. Let's see. So let's just get this laid out and then I'll figure out how to break it up. Level progression. So we've got all of our icons here. Let's do a, let's see. Texture rect, candle unlit, keep. Okay, and then we'll take a texture rect again. We'll do arrow. Keep centered. We'll put keep centered on all these things. So we'll do arrow, and then it would be like another candle here, and then it would be another arrow. And then we've got the sword. Sword unlit. And then basically all of these would be duplicated. Oops, I need another arrow. Like so. And then the final thing would be the boss. So I think that's fine. So now we need a way of configuring this. So I think what I'll do is I will say candle texture rect. And then we'll just, I'll just do this. Oops. Delete those. We'll just do one of each. Sword texture rect. And then we'll do, we don't need this one. And then I can just, I'll just put the boss. So texture rect, keep centered, skull unlit. I'll just call it skull texture rect here. Okay, so I've got all of the parts that I need here, and what I'll do now is I will hide all these by default. Let's add a script. Oh, I need to create that script in here, or folder rather. Level progression. And then now we can create the script. Seems like the current indie scene is roguelike deck builder, but, or some mechanic. Yeah, exactly. There's plenty of ideas too, like a blackjack Balatro-like. I'm sure that's been done, but I kind of toyed around with the idea of making a blackjack roguelike kind of thing. I think that'd be kind of fun. How come you use regular nodes as scene roots rather than node 2D or controls? I feel like it's nice to only have auto loads as node. How come you use regular nodes as scene roots rather than node 2D or controls? Well, it's not, I mean, I am using a control node as the scene root here. If you're talking about like run manager here, basically any node that just needs to respond to signals and have access to the scene tree is just a plain old node. So like, I think if I looked at this card loot table manager, this one might not actually even need to be a node, but anything that's just purely logical, but also might need access to the scene tree and signals and whatnot, I make it a plain node. But when I do need things like the position, I'll make it a node 2D. Wouldn't it be faster to draw in grayscale and then do unlit colors via shader? I don't think so. And there's no reason to add a shader when I could just recolor the sprite and swap it. Yeah, I don't think, I actually think a shader would complicate things more than necessary. But that's just my opinion. Hello, Dusty. Welcome back to the stream. Good to see you again. All right, so let's see. What am I doing? Run progress bar. So I need to create the script or write the script in here. Game.ui.level progression. Node private texture rect candle texture rect. Private texture rect arrow texture rect. Private texture rect. Sword texture rect. Skull texture rect. Okay, we got all the references now. So I'm just going to create a private void setup here. I'll actually call this in here. Maybe not. Public override void ready. Goodness gracious. We'll call setup here. Okay, so then in here, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna store an integer here, or var int, var combat encounters. We'll do 5 for now. Okay, so for var I less than combat encounters, yada yada, typical for loop. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I need to do the following. So candle texture rect. So I need to do 2 candles. So for var j equals 0, j less than 2, j plus plus. Var candle is equal to candle texture rect dot duplicate as texture rect. Add child candle. Var arrow is equal to arrow texture rect as duplicate add child arrow. Okay, and then we need to add a sword. Duplicate as texture rect. Add child sword. Okay, so that'll give us all of our combat encounters, and then at the end we need to do the boss. So I'll just do var arrow texture rect here is equal to, oh, it's not gonna let me, oh no, var arrow, shoot. I'll just call it final arrow, arrow texture rect dot duplicate. I could probably do these as one line, honestly, but it's okay. Add child final arrow. Skull is equal to skull texture rect dot duplicate skull. Okay. So if I did everything correctly, we can see how this looks. So we're going to instantiate that run progress bar and put that here. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to change this to shrink shrink center, shrink begin. And we're going to make sure that we're turning all of these to ignore. Now it's going to be right at the top there, but let's take a look. let's take a look. We're going to need to add some padding, but that's all right. Okay, it didn't work. And it didn't work because I need to set all these things to visible as well. Okay, now we can try it. Yeah, I get that it might be nice to have some functionality put in as components, even if they never rely on information from the scene, rather than having just as classes and using constructors. Yeah, that's the other thing too, is like I often end up in a situation where I want to pass a node as a signal argument, but I can't do that because if I'm using a pure class, I can't send a pure C# class over as a signal argument, and that kind of like messes up the flow, and then I either need to make it a node and add it to the scene tree, or wrap it in some kind of ref counted or something. And a lot of times it's like, might as well just make it a node from the start, because then I can pass it as a signal argument. I can connect to the scene tree. I can get nodes in group. That's a big one. Having access to the scene tree allows you to get nodes in a certain group. So yeah, it's just like, there are times when you can use just like a plain class to do things, but for the most part, if I know that or if I suspect that I'll need like signals and signal arguments and access to the scene tree, I'll just make it a node, and then that stuff is available to me whenever I need it. Is there a limit to how long your chat message can be? I don't know. I guess that would be on YouTube's end. Node 2Ds take up more memory than nodes. They're not needed. There's no reason to use them. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, they have a little bit of overhead in the sense that their transforms are updated. And so if you've got a whole scene with a bunch of node 2Ds, that little bit of updating the transforms can add some overhead to the game. So I think pure nodes are just more lightweight, and you still get access to the things you need. There's a limit to chat messages, I believe is 200 characters. Okay, thank you, Craig. Okay, so we've got some issue here. There's like a little... this is always a problem with TextureX. I don't know what's going on here, but... repeat. If I turn on repeat disabled... wonder if that will fix it. Why does it do that? That's very annoying. Okay, so that's fun. What happens if I just do keep? Okay, so that's working. So yeah, I don't know, it's just weird. I wonder if I might do this. Well, let's get the padding in place first. Also, it's not centered for some reason. Or maybe it is centered. Okay, let me just do one thing at a time here. We'll add a padding container, ignore margin top. We'll do maybe 16. We'll put the run progress bar there. That's probably not enough. Let's do 24. Oh, I also did the logic wrong. Those arrows look terrible. Okay, so texture rects are not working the way that I was hoping they would be working. Texture rects are so weird. Like they fail to render correctly a lot of times, and I don't know why that is. I wonder if I just... Okay, let's do this. I'm going to switch these all to keep. And then they're all going to also be set to shrink center in the vertical. Maybe that will work. Okay, so keep centered is the problem. Keep centered is the problem. So we'll turn all those off. And then it looks like I'm missing an arrow after I add the sword. So what I'll do here is I'll just say if I is greater than 0, we're going to go ahead and add an arrow. And it probably is a good thing to do here. Private void add arrow. And then we can remove that. Oh, I don't have an add candle method. Add arrow. Add arrow. All right, let's see if that works. What are you doing, cat? Uh-oh. Somebody's gonna show you on stream. Say hello. Okay, run along. That final arrow needs to be before the end of the for loop. Yeah, I think I got it now. I think I got it. Because there'll always be another loop for the boss icon, so I'll always need that arrow. Yeah, I think I got it. I think I'm passing a class as a signal argument somewhere in my code. Or not like the class itself, but an instance object of it. Yeah, I mean, as long as your class inherits from a Godot object fundamentally. So Godot object is like the base type that everything inherits, if I'm not mistaken. So if you look at anything, like even ref counted, see how that inherits from object? So object is like what everything inherits from. So this is the object here. And I guess you could pass along these packed arrays too. But typically when you're writing a script, you'll be extending ultimately from object, whatever you're writing. And the object is sort of like the fundamental thing that can be marshaled and unmarshaled by Godot under the hood. So yeah, as long as you are extending from object, then you should be able to pass your class along, or your instance along in a signal method. And there's other things too, like I think you can do the arrays and stuff, the basic types. Okay, so this looks okay, but the problem is it looks off-centered because it's centered along this line here and not over here. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 combat encounters. So there actually needs to be 2 more candles at the end of the... Is that what you were saying, Adam? So there needs to be 2 more encounters before the boss. So I'll do this. 6 combat encounters. If I is less than combat encounters -1. Okay, and I've got 2. Okay, so actually, is this wrong now? So I don't need that final arrow then. Right, because the final arrow is being added there, so we can get rid of this one. Okay, I think that's going to work. So 2 events, sword, 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 2 events, boss. So this is going to be, I mean, I have to figure out what I'm doing exactly, but I think what I'll do now is put this padding container. I'll just center this in the whole screen and see what happens. Yeah, and I could probably, I don't need this to have so much space. Let's do a horizontal separation of 0 and see what that looks like. Okay, that's a little bit too compact. Let's do 2. I don't know what the default is, maybe 6 or 8 or 4 or something. Okay, I think that's probably, oh my gosh, cat. I think that's probably okay. Maybe the padding is a little bit too much. So let's turn this down to 20. Or let's do 18, let's just make it the tile size. What are you doing, cat? What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? Okay, all right. Anyway, that looks better. That does look more centered, even though there's sort of like a center line here. But I think that's probably okay. I don't know. I don't know. All of this stuff is work in progress, so I wonder if I should make this... Those colors don't look right. But we'll figure that out later. I think I want to make this work first and foremost. So let's go ahead and do that. So as we are encountering things, so I have 2 events first, which I think is good. So maybe that's how I'll start. So the player will enter the game. There will be 2 events. I wonder if I should... So this kind of goes to the question of what cards does the player start with? I haven't really figured that out, but it does make sense to give the player a couple of events first before encountering a combat rather than starting on a combat, which is what I've got here. So let me do that. Oops. I'm kind of curious what this looks like, actually. If I get rid of all of these things, well, I'll keep the God mode in case I need it, but let's get rid of the other items. And we're going to start the player state combat selection, state choose event. Let's start the player in the state choose event. Hello, Louise. Welcome. Good to see you. Okay, so let's choose a booster first. Maybe I should put the player in the booster state first so they can get more cards. Max health increase board size. Let's increase the board size. Okay, why did I have 3 events? Oh, you know what? Here's what I'll do. Force event type equals event type booster. So we'll start the player with booster pack selections. That didn't work. Cool. State event. Let's go to the state event first. Nice to catch your stream. Thank you, Gorkum. Welcome to the stream. Glad to have you here. Okay, so yeah, so now we're in the booster stage, so I can choose one of these. Ooh, I got a tier 1 scarab. Look at that. Okay, so now I'm in events. I'm going to choose increase board size. Let's add an enchantment to the scarab, which actually is probably going to be really... Ooh, that's going to actually be really good because the damage increases by 2 every time. So the damage is going to increase by 4 every time this executes. That's crazy. Okay, so then we can go into the skeleton warrior and axe. We'll put these 2 things on the board and let's see what happens. Deals 6 damage. Yeah, look at that. Wow, that's actually crazy powerful on the scarab. Nice. Okay, then we can do our relic cards. Okay, so now we need to make this indicator up here actually work. Add an enchantment to card. Poison enchant. We'll put this on here. Wall poison applied is increased by 1. Alchemize cards. Let's alchemize these 2 things. Okay, great. I got rid of my skeleton, but that's all right. Deal 2 damage, heal 2. This one maintains. These both maintain the poison echo, or the poison enchant, so put that there. Fight the corvids here. Okay, that feels much better. That feels much more natural as a start to the game, rather than just being thrust into combat. So I'll start the player with a card or 2, and then I'll also give the player a booster selection immediately upon the start of the game, so they can get some more cards. And then they got 2 events where they can give themselves an initial sort of set of buffs here, and then they can go right into the combat. So we need to make this indicator work up here now. And the thing is, I don't know how to do that. So I'm going to need to store the lit versions of all of these textures. So let's do export private texture 2D, candle lit texture. This has to be sword lit texture and skull lit texture. Hello, Cupid Makes Games. I was wondering if I was watching your video about Gunforge revenue. I was interested in learning how long the game took to make. I could trace its development back to a 2019 devlog. Yeah, that's about accurate. So that game, Gunforge, was in development in some form for like 4 years. Now, it's not like I spent 4 years of 40-hour weeks working on it. You know, it was like 4 years of working on it in the evenings, and then like there would be 6 months chunks of time where I didn't work on it at all. And the game also transformed a lot. Originally, the game was going to be made as like an Enter the Gungeon clone, but I moved away from that over a period of time. So yeah, it's on and off, but I would say like the past 6 to 7 months is when I really like started working on it and with the intent to finish it. So probably, you know, probably like a year of dedicated effort is what would have been required to finish the final version of the game. 5 years of change and be published. Wanted to ask how you sustained yourself during that 5-year development period. Yeah, so I was working full-time as a software engineer. So the reason why the progress was so slow is because, like I said, I only worked on it on like weekends and evenings. And so I was making a full-time salary as a software engineer. I wasn't making any money off of my games or YouTube channel or anything like that. Does the boost apply as soon as you put it in the grid? Yeah, so obviously there's a lot of effects and animations missing, but yeah, as soon as you go to that that enchant grid and you drop the card in, the intention is to play some kind of animation that makes the upgrade moment feel very exciting, and then it's going to, but yeah, the enchantment automatically applies once you drop a card into there. After the game loop is locked and in boss fight added, are we going to be looking at a playtest? Well, yes. I mean, generally speaking, yeah. I think I want to have a playable build within the next month or so. So by the start of May is when I want to have a playable build. And I do want to do other things besides just getting this loop done. Like I have to add a bunch more cards and capabilities and add the villager faction. So again, I want to do the enemy faction that you fight is actually going to be like humans and villagers and clerics and stuff. So you're going to be like this necromancer, alchemist, medieval scientist kind of character with your cards, and you'll be fighting like villagers at first and like peasants and whatnot, and then the next tier might be some soldiers and clergy or whatever, and then the final tier will be like these beefed up paladins with like a bunch of holy objects and stuff. So that's kind of going to be the progression. So I do need to put a lot of time into making all of those cards as well. And the other thing that I like about that too is that I can create enemy cards that have unique abilities that maybe the player can't get, right? So there could be like a holy status, for instance, that applies holy damage that could have some kind of unique effect against the player that the player can't wield against the enemies. So there could be like a little bit of asymmetry there. You know, I mean, there could be like I'm thinking about like some kind of high cleric who has like a 20 turn cooldown, but at the end of the cooldown, he just heals the board to full, you know what I mean? Something like ridiculous like that. Anyway, congratulations on having published awesome full game. Looking forward to the next one. Thank you, Cupid Makes Games. Appreciate that. Is there a way to preview what the boost would be beforehand? Yeah, so when you get to the enchantment screen, there's 3 options. You've got like the echo, poison, and I forgot what the other one is, the turn reduction. So the idea is you choose the enchant that you want first before the grid shows up, and then the grid is just the mechanism by which you apply the enchant. And also, I want to give the player the opportunity to go back in a lot of cases too. So if you click on the poison, you go, wait, I don't want the poison. Being able to back out of that menu and choose a different one is something that I want to support as well. So yeah, hopefully, you know, all of this stuff is work in progress. So I got to get there at some point. Hello, Quidgy Pixel. Welcome back. Always good to see you. It's been my experience as a software developer. At least technical playtest is pretty valuable because people can break your stuff in ways you can't imagine. Yeah, for sure. I'm also developing games myself, having difficulty managing the tweens in the game. Do you have a certain pattern that you follow when working with complex tweens? Yeah, sometimes tweens become unwieldy, especially if you're trying to do complicated things with tweens. So, you know, if I'm trying to do a really complex animation, I'll just do an animation player. I don't know if that's helpful at all, but yeah, tweens can be really hard to work with if you're trying to orchestrate things in a complex manner. So I almost wish there was like a GUI like tween builder kind of thing where you could visualize how the tween is going to work and preview it in the editor. I guess that would be a good add-on for anyone that's feeling industrious. Make an add-on that has a GUI that allows you to construct a tween using like a graph setup or something, so that you can set all the tween parameters and everything and preview it in the editor. That would be super handy. Because there are some cases where like a tween is preferable to an animation player, but as the tweens get more complicated, they're harder to manage. Learning those issues is always better. I agree, yeah. Thank you for your great content on Udemy. Always wanted to make games and have been working as a software developer for 11 years and never dabbled in games. Learned lots. You're welcome. Thank you, Robert, for your comment. I very much appreciate that. Just seeing what the flow would be. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Busy chat this morning. Yeah, it's great. Great to have everyone here. Welcome back, Cody. That would be so nice. Is this in reference to being able to go back and change your selection? Welcome to the stream, Forgotten. You're welcome, Gorkum. Thank you, thank you. All right, so let's go back into this here. So I added export variables for these lit textures. So we'll put the skull lit there, the candle lit there, and the sword lit there. Oh my gosh, okay. The cat is being ridiculous. So now we need to keep track of what stage of combat we're in. And how am I going to do this? Run manager. Where's my game UI? So I think what would make sense is to emit some signals from the run manager. Signal, public, delegate, void, event, entered, event, handler, signal, public, delegate, void, event, finished, event handler, signal, public delegate, void, combat, entered, event handler. So I think those are the signals we're going to want. Hold on a second. Goodness gracious. Okay. So then in my game UI, do I want to do it in here? Do I have a reference this.get run manager? I do have that. So I'll just do this here. So var run manager is equal to this get run manager dot connect run manager dot signal name. Actually, I don't need to do this in here. I don't need to do this at the run UI or the game UI level. I can actually just do this in the run progress bar. Signal name dot event entered, callable dot from on event entered. Run manager connect event finished. Combat entered. Cool. Okay, let's get all of these methods written out for me. On combat finished. Cool. All right, so let's go ahead and emit these signals whenever it's necessary here. Okay, so here's a tricky thing. The booster does not count as an event that's being tracked in that progress bar, so I want to skip that. So if forced event type is not equal to null, I'll just do this for now. Game events.emit event entered. No, what? No. Come on, AI, why are you leading me astray? Emit signal event entered. Emit signal event finished. Oh, this is gonna be, oh shoot. Wait a minute. Events chosen. I'm gonna need to, I probably should break off the booster as a separate event in here in the state machine. Separate state, I mean. Okay, let's create a state machine, add states, state booster, enter state booster. I can get rid of this forced event type, I think. Yeah, so we'll get rid of this state booster in here. I'm going to change this to on booster event finished. We'll get rid of this. We have to keep this here though, because you could choose a booster as a chosen event. So it's kind of weird. The booster shows up always after combat, but it shouldn't count as an event. An event is like a separate thing that the player has a choice over, but one of the events that it can choose, that the player can choose is another booster pack. So I want to separate the combat booster state, the combat, reward from an event that the player chooses. So we're actually going to keep this in here. We'll get rid of this and just put that there. I probably don't need this forced event type anymore. We'll take this event finished and we'll put that there. On booster event finished. This needs to be state machine dot change state choose event after the booster is finished. State booster. Okay. All right. Hello, Turbo Shook. Welcome back to the stream. Good to see you again. Hello, hello. All right, so let's see. Enter state booster. Enchant. Is that going to work correctly? I should probably just make sure I haven't broken anything real quick. Let's see. So we get a booster selection first. Bring this over. Choose event. Upgrade card goes immediately into the booster. What? Am I still setting a forced event type somewhere? Yep. Okay, more ritual cards, boom. Grab this, booster. Grab this. Why is it not going into the combat now? Oh my gosh. Okay, I think I did this wrong. This now, down here, I'm keeping track of events chosen. If events chosen is less than 2, we'll do that. So it should be booster. Take that. Choose one. Choose another one. And now combat. Okay. So that's all working. So I need this to change up here now. Okay. How do I actually want to do this? This is going to be a little bit tricky, I think. Maybe I'll just store an array of candles, private texture rect swords. So if I do add child candle, I should probably do a list here, I guess. Candles.add candle. Swords.add sword. And I guess we'll store a reference to guess we'll make these read only. Goodness gracious. So probably store a reference to the skull as well. Private texture rect skull. Okay. So on event finished, we want to say this needs to be tracked. So private int events started, private int events completed. Probably going to need to send this along. There. Int events completed. And we probably need to do the same for combat. Combat encounter started, okay. So combat encounter started. So in here, what I'll do is I'll do events started there. And then down here, all right, I think that'll work. And then when I go in my run progress bar here, callable.from int on event entered. On combat finish, what? Why is there an on combat finished here? Sometimes the AI just leads me astray, you know? Okay, I think what I can do here now is on events started. So events started, is that incremented before it's emitted? I think so. Yeah. So events started. Candles. Events started -1.texture is equal to candle lit texture. On event finished, this is where we need to spawn the particles. On combat entered, swords dot texture is equal to lit texture. Okay, all right. Hopefully that will give me what I want. We'll do this booster. As soon as I take this over, the candle did not get lit. Very cool. Very cool, very cool. So something's not working correctly. Oh, that finished. Am I not hooking into this correctly? Event entered. On event entered. Let's print events started here. I'm getting no errors, so that's kind of confusing. It's kind of concerning. That is not emitting an event. Oh, the event started needs to, okay. this should actually be called event selection entered event handler. Enter state choose event up here. Event selections started, so it needs to happen earlier, that's all. Okay. That should work. I'm getting no errors. That's kind of concerning. Really wraps up my programming career, really. Yeah. Yeah, it's true. It's true. Okay, so that's lit now. It's not very obvious. I probably need to change the colors of all these things. Maybe I'll do that. Well, let's just see if this works. So poison enchant. Boom. Boom. Okay, we're not in combat now. Why are we not in combat? Event selection started. Okay, event selection started. Why did we not enter combat? When I did the... Hold on a second. When I chose the enchant option, upgrade a card, upgrade. This should have combat started as well in the other spot. Combat's. So this is going to have to be combat selection. So I'm going to do this as well. Combat selection encounters started. It looks like when I added the enchant, it didn't proceed correctly. I don't know why. Increase board size. Add enchantment to card, poison enchant, boom, boom. Okay, maybe I was just not paying attention, but... So now we're on the combat here. Begin. Okay, so these things are all going now. Add enchantment to card, poison enchant, boom, boom. Increase board size. Okay, it seems to be working. So you can see how that progression is working. I think those colors are not dark enough. So I might play with that for a second here. Skull unlit. We'll just move it down a darkness level. For the darkest ones. Sword unlit. Oh wait, I chose the wrong... Did I choose the wrong color? We'll move it down a level and see. Candle unlit. Okay. Export layers. If you are only lighting after the event is done, you should have an indicator for the event you're currently at. Well, I'm lighting it when you enter the event. So The lit version is what you've either completed or are currently on. But yeah, I think, yeah, probably having an indicator too would be good. Like an underline, like you said. Anyway, so those are darker now, which is great. So let's see what happens. So that should be more obvious now when it becomes lit. Yeah, that's much better contrast there. So the idea is that the candle will actually get a particle effect when it's completed. So this is what you're currently on. I don't know what to do about the sword, though. Perform alchemical transformation. Increase board size, okay. Corvid. Okay, I think that's looking better. Now here's the question. How am I actually going to do the particles here? GPU particles, 2D. New particle, no. Oh, interesting. So new particles here, no interpolation, lifetime 0.4, new particle process material, mission shape, we'll just do a point. Oh, I need the material here. Oops. Oh, the material is here. Okay, gravity, initial velocity, turn down the spread a little bit. Initial velocity is, let's do 20. Make it super tiny. Okay. Let's see, scale over time. We'll see how that works. Why does that keep happening? Every time I add something, it like resets my position. Constant interpolation. Okay. So for this color, obviously gonna want some kind of orange, and then this color, red. Don't know if that's gonna look good, but we'll see. I'll just leave that in place. Let's see what happens. When you first start the game, you aren't actually in the loop yet when you're picking your first minion. That's where I was mistaken. Oh, yeah. Okay, so that looks okay. What I might do actually is take this, move it a pixel up, maybe increase the lifetime. That's probably all right. I wonder if I should do a different color, actually. Let's do... You know what I can do? We don't want this. Let's do copy. Let's see, display. We want this to be probably color ramp instead. So paste. So that it always starts at the same color. And we'll make it white. See what that looks like. Okay, I like that. I think it's just moving a little bit too aggressively, so I might actually turn the lifetime up and slow it down. Turn up the scale a little bit, perhaps. Let's do 0.35 and 0.45. Okay, let's turn on sphere, give it a little bit of variation here. And we could probably turn up the spread a little bit as well. Let's see how that looks. Ooh, yeah, that looks pretty good now. So just like a very subtle candle lit. And I'm going to move this up 1 pixel as well. Okay, so those will only be lit when you've actually completed it. So I need to take this, turn emitting off, and then when I create the candle, or when the candle is finished here, on event finished. Candles, events completed, dot get first node of type, particle, GPU particles, particles 2D, dot emitting equals true. All right, let's see if that works. The variation helped a lot. Yeah, I think so. I think so. Hello, Clint. Godot looks pretty cool. Worth jumping into? Yes, I think so. Yeah, you have nothing to lose really except time. It's free. It's a tiny download. And I think it's the best 2D engine around. So yeah. Cool. So yeah, those that particle now is marking the fact that that event has been completed. And we'll say booster here. Put this here. Boom. Maybe we'll add some kind of like little ignition effect too, like a burst of some kind in the future. But I think that's good enough for now. Yeah, I think that's good enough for now. I could add like a little blood dripping from the sword or something as like a marker that that's done too. Let's see. Can also add an animation to them too, just like when they get selected. Turn cooldown. Yeah, that's looking good. Maybe hide the cycle thing in 2 or in the first event. I could do that, yeah. Fade it in. Really starting to come together now. I've personally never played this type of genre before, but looking forward to trying it out. Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I think it is coming together. I mean, the game really starts to come together, in my opinion, when you start adding like visual effects and stuff, but I'm not quite done with the loop here because I need to have a boss fight. But yes, thank you. I used to use GameMaker Studio too, but I haven't done game dev in ages. Plus, programming in the real world made it difficult to jump back into GameMaker. Yeah, that was my big problem with GameMaker. I used to use GameMaker quite a bit when I was much younger. And I was bothered by the lack of basically proper programming. So as I got more familiar with programming, it's like the GameMaker scripting became less and less appealing. And that's when I switched to Godot, because Godot had the object-oriented, it had a mature scripting language, and also just a ton of out-of-the-box functionality that GameMaker doesn't have. It's honestly like a night and day difference in terms of how much functionality Godot has compared to GameMaker. There's only like one or two things that I wish Godot had that GameMaker does. One of those things being surfaces. The ability to just define a surface and draw to it is actually relatively difficult in Godot. Like there's no such thing as like, here, blit to this surface and then use that surface as a texture. I mean, you can do it with viewports and stuff, but it's a huge hassle and like, yeah, anyway. How about adding a third state to the counter, like a little lighter color such as gray or light gray, which shows the current step but is different from the state complete? I mean, I hear what you're saying. The problem is that I only have like 8 colors to work with. So I'm rigidly adhering to a color palette here, and these are all the colors that are available to me. So if we exclude the black color, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have 7 colors. I have 7 colors to work with, and I'm excluding black because that's the background color, so anything that's made black is essentially invisible. So I've got 7 colors to work with. So yeah, it makes it hard to do things like what you're suggesting. Godot sounds very cool then. Yeah, I would definitely recommend it. My apologies. Yeah, no worries, Syed. I mean, it's a good suggestion, and it's a, yeah, I don't mean to dismiss your suggestion, but that's the constraint that I'm working with, and so I can't do things like that, unfortunately. So that's why I'm kind of like, if I add particles to each of these states just as an extra indicator, so I'm thinking like if I do blood dripping off of the sword, that can indicate that the sword has been completed too, right? I actually might just do that. Let's doodle on that for a sec. Let's doodle on it for a sec, you know? Okay, but I have to make sure to make this unique here. Okay, so let's put this down here. And let's make some blood particles. So this is gonna have to change. We'll go in here. Actually, let's do this. Make unique recursive. Get rid of that color ramp. Scroll all the way back up because favorites are up here. Initial color ramp. Get rid of this. Make this just red. Okay. So gravity now needs to change to go the other direction. We're going to get rid of, well, not rid of the initial velocity. We'll make it point down instead of up. And we'll give it a higher gravity as well. And we'll probably turn the amount up to 6. The other thing we want to do is we want to make this render behind. So visibility, show behind parent. That might be good. So let's turn off emitting here. We're going to do the same for the sword. So I need combat completed now. Booster. Okay, we'll go to the run progress bar. Combat finished, on combat finished. Sword, combat encounters completed -1, swords. Get first node of type, GPU particles 2D, dot emitting. And just for the sake of it, I'm gonna turn this on and we'll just look at it, what it looks like in game here. That's probably too many particles. Let's actually turn it down. We'll turn it down. We'll give it a slightly longer lifetime. Let's turn up the radius here to 4. And then let's also give it a little bit of explosiveness so that it's not as uniform as it is. All right, let's see what that looks like. Pretty cool. I think what I can probably do is move the particles up a little bit more, and I can potentially increase their duration even more. Let's see. Yeah. All right, let's see what that looks like with it being activated as you complete the combat encounters. Bro, you're doodling on it. Yes, I am. Welcome back, Adaton. Seems a little fast. Yeah, I agree. I think I turned it down a little bit. Oh, why is there an extra... Oh, I forgot to turn that off. You can move it to the left side as the red color is on that side. It'll change when it's highlighted, so I don't think that's necessary. But let's see. Oh, I shouldn't have chosen Alchemize. Deal 2 damage, deal 2,000 damage. Don't mind if I do. Begin. Okay, so now we got the blood particles playing. It's really subtle, but I think that little extra bit helps. So just as an indicator that that's done. And again, we'll add like maybe some like little explosion particles just to really emphasize that that's been completed. It could probably change the scale as well at some point. Echo enchant. Boom. Boom. The God mode mutton. All right, let's see. Begin. Cool, so now we've got particles indicating when things have been completed. But the thing is now I don't have, I need to get the boss working. Good thing it heals now too, you might be in danger, yeah. That's true. Oh, goodness. Goodness. Maybe I should update. Should I change the arrow colors as well to lighten those up as you're completing things? Maybe I should. Might be too noisy though, I don't know. Might be too noisy though, I'm not sure. Obviously, I don't have a whole lot of event variety here. That's gonna need to change. Ooh, I gotta reorganize some things. Ooh, tier 2 minion, or tier 3 minion, look at that. Not that it matters, because I'm doing God mode, but that's fine. Okay, so this is going to start breaking now at this point, because I don't have any more, Ooh, heal 5, look at that, tier 4. And now I've got some errors because we're at the end here. So the other problem is that this progress bar is not being driven. Like, it's just hard-coded the number of encounters here. So this probably needs to be driven by the run manager. So the run manager needs to define how many event stages there are going to be and then how many combat stages there are going to be. I'm still not entirely sure that 5 combat stages is going to be enough. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Because if I do, so let's say there's 3 different floors or tiers or levels or whatever. And there's 6 total combat encounters, one of which is the boss. That's only 18 combat encounters. Now that might be okay. Actually, now that I phrase it as 18, that might be fine. So 18 combat encounters in a run. Plus, there may be events that spawn new combat encounters as well. So like here, it could be like, oh, pillage a village or whatever and have a chance of gaining things and have a chance of fighting, you know. And then that would be an extra combat encounter that necessarily wouldn't be one of the predefined combat encounters. So it could be that you end up fighting 20 different enemy boards during an entire run. But I guess I shouldn't really think about that at the moment. I should just see how it feels first and then go from there. The arrow can light up to the point to what you're currently at, solves both issues at once. Yeah, maybe I should do that, huh? Maybe add a slight offset to the spot that you're currently on. Oh, like a vertical offset? That's a good idea, yeah. Maybe I can do that. Although with control nodes, that's hard to accomplish, so I'm gonna have to figure that out. Hey, new to the channel, game looks very cool. Could you explain a bit about the game? Yes, but I'm going to hold you in suspense for a second because it's time for my 2-minute break. I need to go get a refill and take a, one of them old bio breaks as well. So if you give me just 2 minutes when I come back, Jesse, I will give you a whole rundown of what the game is like and what it is. But in the meantime, while I'm on my 2-minute break, check out the links in the description below, everybody. Those are all the ways you can support me. Gunforged is available for sale. It's also part of a bundle now, 2 bundles actually, so you can get a couple of games at once, including Gunforged, for a discount if you're interested. I also have my Udemy courses available for sale if you want to learn how to build a complete game in the Godot engine. So again, give me 2 minutes, I'll be right back, and then when I get back, I'll explain the game for you, Jesse, and for anyone else watching that wants to know, and then we will continue on working on this little progress bar here. All right, BRB. All right, I'm back. It become alive. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Bought his Udemy course on making a complete game in Godot and C# and it's pretty fantastic. Highly recommend. Thank you, Adam. I appreciate that. Thank you, thank you. Craig says, definitely something I have considered. I just know that the engine updates so often, a lot of references. Yeah, that's true. That's definitely true. My courses are a victim of that in some places as well. Okay, Jesse. So let's go ahead and go over the game here. So this game, I'm still trying to come up with like a succinct way of describing it, but basically this is a collectible card game grid inventory management auto battler with a medieval science alchemy / necromancer theme. And the idea is that you get these cards here, and each card will have different capabilities and different tags. So for instance, this one is a minion that deals 2 damage every 3 turns. And I'll explain what a turn is in just a little bit, but I've got these booster packs here where I can choose to get some cards, which you've probably seen a little bit here. And this one, so for instance, here's a different one. This is a relic and alchemical, and it's the phylactery, and it applies 0 poison to start, but every time poison is applied, the poison that this applies grows by 1. So that's kind of an interesting thing to do. And this is wrapped up in a roguelike formula. So you get to choose some upgrades. These are what I'm calling events here. So I can alchemize cards. I'll get into the alchemy system in a second. I can add enchantments to cards. I can increase my board size. So I'm going to increase the board size. That makes my board a little bit bigger. And I can increase the board size again. So I'll just do that. Okay, so then I get to choose combat encounters. So I don't have very good starting cards. So I have 3 different choices here. I'm going to choose the easiest one, Scarab and Bell. And I'm just going to go ahead and begin. And so this is where the auto battler phase kicks in. So you basically organize your grid such that you're maximizing the power of all your cards, and then you just watch the battle unfold. This is an auto battler, like I said. And I'm unfortunately probably going to lose this one. Oh, maybe not. No, I think I'll be fine. Okay, perfect. So I won the combat. I get to choose more cards. So I'm going to choose minion here. Okay, here's a good synergy. So I've got the axe. And so the axe here deals 2 damage, but doubles the damage if there's an adjacent minion. So this is a minion card. So I'm going to put the axe here, and now I'm getting that bonus. And I can see that I've got the bonus because when I hover over the axe, it's highlighting that skeleton, meaning that it's detecting that the skeleton is a valid satisfaction of that condition there. Now, here's the alchemy system. So this is the main thing that separates this game from other games, is I can take this alchemized cards system here. I can put cards in the alchemy grid, perform the alchemical transformation, and what I get as the output is a card that is a mixture of all of the input abilities. So now I have a phylactery here that deals damage by itself, but also doubles damage if there's an adjacent minion, and it has the traditional phylactery ability. Or I could take the axe that has that if I so prefer. In this case, I'd probably just take the one that has fewer turns. So this is 5 turns, and this is 4 turns. So I'm actually going to go ahead and take the axe because I get the benefits of both with the lowest turn count. And then I can choose things like max health increase. So I'll increase my health there. And I'm going to try fighting the medium difficulty enemy now because I've got that power increase. I don't have any poison yet, so I'm not making use of this. But anyway, so that's kind of the idea. And the idea is that you just keep gaining in power. You create these powerful cards through the alchemy system, through the enchant system. You keep your board as optimized as possible, and you fight all the way through to the end of the game doing that. So that's the gist of the game here. I'm gonna take this. This is a heal here. And let's do enchantment. So I'll just show the enchantment. So poison enchant. I actually don't want to do that. Let's do turn cooldown enchant actually, and we'll throw that on the axe. So now the axe has an enchantment where the turn cooldown is reduced by 1, and now it's 3 turns. So this axe is just growing in power now. And let's do another enchant. Why not? Let's throw another turn cooldown on it. Why not? Boom. So now it's 2 turns. All right, so let's try the most difficult encounter here, and we'll just let that go. So yeah, that's the game in a nutshell. I want to encourage players to create very ridiculous cards that are ridiculously powerful with ridiculous synergies, and And that's the game. The implementation that changed, yeah, for the tutorial content, yeah, for sure. I think that's right. Yeah, but I think there's something to be said for not putting the onus on the student to have to figure out what the differences are and what changed. I think at the beginning of my courses, what I do recommend is that you download the exact Godot version that I'm using, so that you can at least follow along and don't get lost in the changes. But there's a lot of students that are several versions ahead of what the course is and they have no problems, so. Cursor didn't work out. No, I'm still using Cursor. I had to use a different C# extension though because Microsoft blocked the C# dev kit on Cursor. Thank you, Jesse. I appreciate that, and you're welcome. Yeah, I think this game has a lot of potential, so now it's just a matter of executing it well, and that's the hard part, as everyone knows. So we'll see. All right, so what did I say I was gonna do? Oh yeah, do I want to highlight the arrows? Maybe I'll do that. Let's work on highlighting the arrows here. Actually, I'm gonna commit what I have first. So work on run progress bar. Okay. So I'm gonna want these arrow, I'm gonna change this name to arrow unlit. And then we'll duplicate arrow lit. Okay. Classic Microsoft, yeah. I don't know why they're so like tight-fisted with the C# stuff lately. Like they were doing so good with all their open source stuff, but now it's like you need a license to use the C# stuff properly, and you can't use the C# extension in any forks of VS Code, and it's like, why? What is the point? What is the point? I don't understand that decision at all. You know, like I understand enforcing the licensing requirements for like because you have to pay for a license if you're going to be working on a commercial project with a team of like 6 or more or something. I was reading the license to make sure I was in the green. So I understand making like companies pay for a license for that kind of, for the tooling, but why does the license restrict it to only be used in Microsoft forks of VS? I guess what they're probably trying to do is force everyone into the Copilot ecosystem. And since Copilot is just integrated directly into VS Code and Microsoft owns GitHub, that's probably what they're doing. They're just probably trying to force people into that ecosystem there, but I don't understand it. It makes me like Microsoft less and make me want to use their products less, not more. The hard part is sitting here watching somebody do all the work, yeah. How did Cursor even get the C# extension in the first place? Because as far as I know, it didn't get a lot of extensions. Well, I honestly think from what I was researching yesterday, Cursor was basically just ignoring the license requirements. So yeah, I don't know if VS Codium maybe is more diligent about making sure that they have access to extensions in a, well, yeah, in a proper way. I don't know. They want you to use their AI, yeah. Embrace, extend, extinguish. I use VS Codium, yeah. I mean, I might try Copilot because, I mean, unfortunately, this new C# extension that I have, which is good, it works, but it's much slower than the C# dev kit, like noticeably slower, which is unfortunate. So I might have to switch to using Copilot and VS Code. But maybe, I don't know, maybe that will change. We'll see. In anywho, what am I looking for? Level progression. So I need this arrow texture rect. We're gonna put arrow unlit there, and then I'm gonna delete this one, which is no longer used. arrow lit texture. Cool. So now let's figure out how to get these arrows lit. I actually don't know how I'm gonna figure out which arrow needs to be lit here. All right, I'm just gonna cheat a little bit. Private int lit arrow index. So lit arrow index. So what I'm going to do is on event finished. If events completed is greater than 1, lit arrow index plus plus. On combat selection entered, on combat finished. On combat selection entered. Yeah, I think this one's fine. So we'll just do lit arrow index plus plus. Private void update lit arrow. Arrows lit arrow index dot texture is equal to that. And then we'll call this here and here. I think that will work. Maybe I made a logical error here. Hello, Neozoid. Welcome back. Good to see you. Good morning, Fox Shadow. Good to see you as well. Just watch Games from Scratch talk about the latest Godot 4.5 dev patch, and control dropping nodes into scripts will default to the UID rather than the file system ref. What are your thoughts on UIDs? I mean, I understand the problem that they were trying to solve with UIDs, and I honestly think that the big problem I have with UIDs is just like, if I'm going to delete something, I have to make sure to delete it through the editor, or I have to delete it through the normal file system, but also catch the UID file. I think it's a little bit annoying that the UID files are cluttering up the file system. Like, I have them hidden in my directory here in my editor, right? But if I were to go and look at this in the Explorer, so open Reveal in File Explorer, I've got all these UID files. It's kind of messy. That's my biggest complaint with them. I don't have a problem in principle with like using UIDs to identify things. So, but I also don't see how dropping nodes into scripts will default to the UID. The problem is the UIDs, they're not human readable, right? It's not, you don't know what the UID is referencing when it's used as a string inside the code base, right? So that's one of the big problems. So I'm not sure about that, but I think the Godot devs are probably, I mean, they had good reason to do what they did, and I'm sure the system will be improved. I'm sure the system will be improved as time goes on, but yeah, it's just kind of annoying. Like, if I want to, like I said, if I want to delete something, I just make sure I have to delete it through the editor so that it also deletes the UID file with it for me. Otherwise, I have to manually keep track of that. And like, if you don't do that, right? If you just delete stuff through your file system, whatever, you're just going to end up with a bunch of UID files that don't identify anything, you know? So I don't know. It's a mixed bag, I would say, but it seems to be solving some big problems that the engine was having too, so you know how it goes. You know how it goes. Okay, the arrows are not being lit. Why not? Oh, this needs to be on event selection entered. This needs to be here. That's why. Some sort of garbage cleanup would be nice if an asset file is deleted and there's leftover UID file. It should also get deleted. Yeah, and I don't think that should be hard to do. You know, I mean, and the other thing too, I wish, like, you could just even add it as a tool, right? Like, there's an upgrade UIDs tool here. If there was just like a cleanup UIDs option here that you could run on occasion manually, that would help a lot too, right? I'm sure it would be possible to write your own editor script that would do that. But yeah, like I said, there's just like, there's some usability improvements that can be made, I think. But I'm sure those things are coming in the future. Oh, I'm gonna die. But the arrows are being highlighted now properly. So let's see if we can get a boss fight going in. So I actually need to do some work to make a boss fight actually happen. Okay, let's do this first. So make arrows lit as well. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to add another signal to the run manager. Public delegate void level entered event handler. And we're going to pass in an event int combat encounters. Total combat encounters. Emit signal level entered. Let's just put a constant here, private const int combat encounters equals 5. Oh, let's do per level, I guess. Okay, run progress bar. What we'll do is we'll connect to this. Level entered, on level entered. Private void on level entered. Setup. Total combat encounters. Int total combat encounters. +1 for the boss. Okay. That's not correct. Why is there a double arrow there? Did I do something wrong? Oh, that's where there should be a... Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4. Why did that break all of a sudden? Oh, that, yeah, that's why. Okay, there we go. So two events, okay. Then the boss event. So what I want to do, so I need to add a boss stage now. Maybe I'll do a boss configuration first. Yeah, I think so. Fox Shadow. Hello, Arion, welcome back. What am I working on today? I'm doing a progression indicator, so basically just showing the player how far along they are to the boss fight. And that's this indicator up here, which gets lit as you sort of complete things here. So increase board size, that's done. Max health increase, that's done. And then combat. Begin. So yeah, and then all the way to the boss here. Which the boss color is kind of not good. So I'm going to fix that, but that's okay. the most important thing is I need to support the logic for fighting a boss now. So that's what we're going to work on. Purely a personal style, but at what point would you say Run Manager needs to be broken up? Well, I am doing that on... I am doing that as I work on this. So I think you were around for when I abstracted out these state machines, all of these different event state machines, which handle the different events that the player can do. So the Run Manager just does just that. It basically defines how many combat encounters there are going to be. It orchestrates at a high level what is currently being shown to the player or what the player is currently doing in the run. And it keeps track of the statistics like how many combat encounters are completed and everything like that. I don't think it would be fruitful at this point to break it up even further because I think it's still doing things in a very narrow way. It is doing a handful of things, but it's basically the overall game's state machine, and then any state-specific logic is abstracted out into one of these sub-state machines. But, like, I'm sure this will grow in responsibility over time, and that's the case where I'll break it up some more. But I think for now, what it's doing is reasonable. So yeah. I'm really bad about super long scripts, so I'm trying to force myself to do better. Yeah, I think that's a good impulse for sure, but I think that the existence of a long script by itself is not necessarily an indicator that things need to be broken up, because you may have something that's just doing one thing, like the single responsibility principle, but it's just that one thing it's doing is very complicated, right? And so there needs to be a lot of code backing it up. And it can get to this case where if you break up something just for the sake of making the script smaller, you could actually increase the complexity of the system. So it's kind of like you have to make a judgment call about whether that refactoring or breaking up of a script is actually going to reduce the complexity or increase it. And so that's something you have to be careful. But I think, yeah, generally speaking, like a long script is an indicator that maybe something can be broken out. But I wouldn't say that it's the golden rule. You know what I mean? Hello, Aniran. Not related to what you're doing, but may I ask a question related to something I've been having trouble with? Sure. No, that's okay. If you want to put your problem in the chat, I can try to help, but we'll see. We'll see. No guarantees that I can help you, but I will try. Hello, Splat. Welcome back. I'm doing well. How are you doing? All right, so we need a boss state in here. State machine.add states state boss. %, right? You can make things worse by breaking things apart. Yeah. I like to think of like programming in terms of like, there are people that like to present a very dogmatic view of programming, but I like to think of it more like heuristic, right? Like a long script can be an indicator that something needs to change, but it's not it's not an unbreakable rule, right? Or the duplication of code can be an indicator that you need to dry things up and refactor and centralize things or put things into like a helper class, whatever. But it's not always necessary, right? Because I think people have this, like state machines are a perfect example, and I've talked about this before, but like state machines are a perfect example where state machines oftentimes look similar enough where you say, okay, I'm going to create this state machine framework that reuses a bunch of code because there's a lot of repeated code. But in my experience with a state machine, it's like all these state machines for all of your entities that you're making in your game are different enough to where like there's actually not a very clean, maintainable way of like merging everything into like one state machine framework. You end up needing to tweak so many little tiny small things to change the different entities that it's not actually feasible. You actually end up creating a more complicated mess. And so like in Gunforge, all of my entities, like the code for their state machines was remarkably similar. But the reason I didn't try to merge those into one thing is because they were just different enough where it would have actually created more complexity to try to unify those things rather than just deal with some apparent duplication, right? And there are trade-offs to both situations, but I think that's a great example of like a place where, you know, code duplication or like code that looks similar is not necessarily always a guaranteed indicator that things need to be refactored into a unified system, right? I have a node 3D named as enemies. It has children that are enemy scenes instantiated as its child, and I have a signal manager. I have a health component. This is the setup. Next message. Okay. We'll wait for the next one here. In the meanwhile, I'm going to go into this. So enter state boss. So what am I actually doing? Enter state combat. So this is creating the board configuration here. Now the question is, do I want to give the player a choice of boss as well? I probably do, don't I? Do I want to give the player a choice of boss? I think so. When I emit the defeat signal from health component, because I'm trying to keep the code related to enemies in the enemy scripts, so I tried writing a loop to subscribe the enemies to the signal. Every enemy gets their own connection. Okay. So you've got a loop. So you've got all of your enemy scenes instantiated under your node 3D. The node 3D is iterating over all the enemies and connecting to each of their died signals. But since I make multiple enemies, the code gets called multiple times. So you're saying that you have a death signal handler at the level of your node 3D. Or no. Trying to keep the code related to enemies in the enemy script, so I tried writing a loop to subscribe to the enemies to the signal. Okay. Oh wait, let's see. You have a signal manager. Oh, you have a signal manager. So you have like a game event. So you have like an auto load signal manager. You have an auto load signal manager or something like an enemy manager that emits a signal. So anytime an enemy dies, the signal manager is emitting that signal. Is that the thing? So when an enemy dies, you have like a global signal, let's just call it, that emits when an enemy dies. Yeah, an auto load. Okay. So the problem, yes. So what is connected to that auto load signal manager then? And all the enemies are receiving the signal. Okay. Okay, so I think there's a problem here. So why are the enemies listening to the death signal from the auto load? Do the enemies need to be aware of any other enemy that dies? So here's the way that I would do it, based on what you've described to me. Yeah, I think that's right, Adam, but unless you have a need for the enemies to know when other enemies have died, here's what I would do. So let me draw this out. So let's say that this is your enemy node here, and then the enemy, think of the way that you set it up. Yeah, so let's say that the red circle is your enemy, and the green circle is the health component, right? And then let's do a black circle here, which is your auto load signal manager, okay? So when the enemy needs to know about its own death, it should just be connecting to its own health component, okay? Now you can also tell the auto load in whatever way you want that this enemy has died. But the enemy should only be responding to the signal emitted by its own health component. And then you can have the health component also notify the auto load node that an enemy has died, and then you could pass a reference to the enemy that died. And so that way, let's say that you have another, let's just for example purposes, let's just say that you have a UI node over here that needs to listen to how many enemies have died. Then that UI node can listen to this auto load, right? So now the UI node is getting notified anytime an enemy dies, but the enemies are only listening for when their specific health component has reached 0, right? So you can do both at the same time, but what I would not do is have the health that's owned by the enemy bypass the enemy node, go straight to the auto load, and then have that forward back to the enemy somehow. That's not going to be sustainable. So generally speaking, if you know where the nodes are in the tree as you would with a pre-made enemy scene, you should just connect directly to those node signals and handle them as locally as possible. So ideally, this enemy should work. It should be able to die, it should be able to move, it should be able to do all this without any knowledge of any auto load scenes at all. And you keep that nice and isolated. And then when you have systems in the game that need to be notified when an enemy dies, you can then elevate that to an auto load signal manager that can basically just forward that request in a global fashion, or forward that signal in a global fashion. The custom signals is defined in the auto loads. Well, you can define your own signal in your health component. You can do both. So you can have a died signal in your health component, and then you can have an enemy died signal in your auto load, and you can emit those both at the same time. It's just that you only want your enemy to listen to the health component died signal. So that's how I've approached it in the past. That's how I would do it. Okay, so let's see. Enter state create board. I was worried that it would make the coding pattern inconsistent. So you're potentially worried about like a duplication, like this is emitting a died signal and then this is emitting a died signal. That's why I like to think of these as like global signal forwarders, right? Where the enemy knows when it's died based on its own health component, and that's all it knows about. It doesn't care about anything that's happening globally. But you do have other systems in your game that potentially do need to know about when an enemy has died, and that's when it gets forwarded up to an enemy level. And you can also pass in additional arguments too. Like I said, you can pass along a reference to the enemy node that is currently dying, so that anything that listens to this signal, this global signal, can handle any information it needs to handle. But ideally, your enemy should be able to die without any of this stuff. And the only way to do that is to hook into that health component directly. So I like to think of these as like signal forwarders, not like signal orchestrators, right? Like this signal autoload should not be driving enemy behavior. It should simply be forwarding things that happen on the enemy as necessary. The convo has taught me a few things at least. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, you're on the right track. You're definitely, using the signals to sort of like notify the game of different state for sure. But yeah, you don't want to be working in a top-down fashion trying to use signals to communicate to the enemies. You want the signals to be generally like flowing upward in the tree. And then, when you forward them, that's when they can kind of go out to random nodes at that point. So I hope that helps. I hope that gives you some ideas to play with. But yeah, make the health component signal both the enemy class and the autoload class that something happened. Then it's up to each class to figure out what to do with that signal, decoupling. Yep. And that's exactly what I did for my game Gunforged Aniran. I had a game events signal manager, and its only responsibility was basically to allow me to forward events to the entire system when the entire system needed to know about something happening. So for instance, if I have like, hey, I need bullets to spawn whenever an enemy is killed. well, I have the enemy killed signal go up to the game events, and then that game events then says, it broadcasts at a global level, hey, this enemy has died. And then any code that needs to respond to that, the code, for instance, that's responsible for spawning something on enemy death, can hook into that global signal and say, okay, this enemy has died, so now I can spawn this effect at that enemy's position. But the enemy class doesn't know anything about what's being done in response to it. It's just listening for its health component and saying, oh, I've died, time to free myself, time to instantiate the death, sequence. And then it's up to the game events auto load signal manager thing to broadcast that event to everyone that needs to listen to it. So yeah. Anyway, yeah, like I said, hope that helps. Maybe that helps other people watching too. All right, so anyway, back to this boss stuff. How do I think what I'll do is I'll use this combat selection event state machine here, I think, maybe? Maybe I'll do that. Probably fix some of my other code with this too, thank you. Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, for sure. You are welcome. All right, so I have this combat selection event state machine, which picks board configurations. I think I should probably give the player a choice of which boss they fight, just like they're getting a choice of which enemies they fight. So I probably will just repurpose this combat selection event state machine here. When this idea finally clicked, it changed everything I did and cleaned up my code in ways I didn't even realize. Yeah, same here. I mean, obviously, when I started working with Godot back in like 2017, I didn't know any of this stuff either. And the kicker when I started using Godot too is that there weren't a whole lot of resources online for like how you should do things properly. And so, yeah, it was just trial and error of like, oh, I wrote this code and it ended up being very messy. So anyway, yeah, it's all part of the learning process. You mean like same boss but different difficulties? No, like, I mean, different bosses with differing difficulties. So like an easy boss, a medium boss, a hard boss, and then have scaling rewards based on that. Because I think the only thing I think it would be weird is if the player could choose the combat difficulty going, well, there's a couple of problems, I guess, with both approaches, but I think it's weird that the player can choose a combat difficulty for the normal encounters, but then they're going to face a boss with a fixed difficulty. But maybe I should do that. Maybe the boss should just be like the DPS check, Okay, so the problem with allowing people to choose which boss they fight is like, yeah, I can scale the rewards based on which boss you fight, but then what happens at the final boss, right? Like how am I going to discourage people from choosing the easiest final boss variant, right? That could tie into the meta progression system, right? Like the bosses could give you meta progression currency. And so like maybe fighting the easiest boss just gives you none. So if you just want to finish the run, you can like fight the easiest boss and like get nothing out of it. But then if you're feeling really good, you can fight the hardest boss and get more meta currency. But the other thing to do is just say, hey, no, you can't choose the boss difficulty. So you have all these encounters, like 10 different encounters worth of opportunity to get as strong as possible. And if you get to the boss and you're not strong enough, that's your fault, right? That's another way of looking at it. So I do like the idea of having being able to choose though what like meta progression rewards you get for fighting bosses. I don't know. What do we think? What is everyone's opinions on this? Yeah, more difficult means better rewards. How do you handle enemies being freed? I'm doing this thing you drew, but I'm encountering object disposed error. So that is another good thing to mention here is that, so when signals are emitted, they're like functions, right? They don't get called at a later point in time. They get called immediately. So when you do an emit signal line, everything that is connected to that signal, unless they're responding in a deferred fashion, executes immediately at that point. So what I would do is emit the died signal before any freeing happens, but treat that enemy object that you pass along in the signal, maybe to this global level, you have to treat it as if it's about to be freed. Like, you can't store that reference anywhere. So in other words, respond immediately to the died signal. And if you do pass along the enemy reference with it, only reference it during that signal handler method, and then don't ever reference it again because it's being freed. So that requires a little bit of discipline, but that's how I typically treat my global events. I just treat anytime a global event is emitted, I always assume that it's got transient data that will not exist in that state in the next frame. So that way, it's just like you're immediately responding to the enemy death, you're doing whatever you need to do immediately, and then you're not storing any references, you're not referencing anything that's freed. It's just, that's it. You have one chance to do what you need to do, and then your chance is gone by the next frame, right? So that's kind of how I look at it. That gets complicated if you're handling signals in a deferred manner or whatever, because then you can get into freed object disposed issues at that point. Each wave could remove the lowest tier of rewards from an encounter selection, so that the game has to get harder as things go on. I think I want to do something like that. The lowest difficulty combat is going to get harder with time. So it's not just like it's not going to be that the lowest difficulty selection is going to be like guaranteed win every time. If that makes sense. I don't know if that answers your question. What's the reasoning for allowing players to choose the difficulty of their fights? So the reasoning is that because of the random nature of the game, it's possible that you don't have enough opportunities to have a strong build by the time you get to a combat encounter. Or it's possible that maybe your power will be falling slightly behind where the enemy power is. And so being able to give the player a choice of like being able to analyze their build and say, yeah, my build is not that good yet, so I'm going to take the easier combat scenario just so that I don't die, right? So I can continue to fight on and gain power. That's the major reasoning. And yeah, the different combat encounters give different rewards. So I have the blood currency here, which there's not a very clear indicator, but if you choose the lowest difficulty, it gives you less blood, and if you choose the highest difficulty, it gives you higher blood. So the idea is that I want to reward players very well for fighting on the highest difficulty encounter, but there needs to be a way, like if you mathematically cannot beat the most difficult board, then there has to be a way out of that somehow. And that's what the combat selection is designed to do. It's designed to be a way of the player saying, yeah, my build is not that great right now, or I don't have a whole lot of health right now, so I'm just going to play it safe during this encounter so that I can keep playing, basically. I feel like it all should be static. The problem with dynamic difficulty is that it does not reward strong boards in a way that almost feels like a punishment for playing well. Well, that's what I'm trying to say is like, I do want to reward playing well. So I guess, so are we still talking about the normal combat encounters, or are we talking about only the bosses? Because I guess if the boss should be static, then yeah, that makes sense, Forgotten. Like, give the player a little bit of leeway on the normal encounters to build up their power and everything, but by the time they get to the boss, this is kind of what I was saying earlier, by the time they get to the boss, if you can't beat the static boss, then that's basically your fault, because I gave you, as the developer, I gave you enough opportunities to increase your build, and if you didn't make good decisions, then yeah, the boss is just going to beat you, you know? Lowest tier of encounters. Oh, got you, yeah. Sounds like a recipe for frustration once you deal with a boss for nothing, just not give enough. Yeah, maybe. When you defeat a boss, a unique item or buffed regular item would be good to have. Okay, yeah. Some kind of unique reward. Also, if it's static, it gives you a reference to the point to know how well your run is going compared to your other runs. That is a good point as well, Forgotten. That's a very good point. And there are other things that I want to do with the game too. Like I want to have like modifiers on the run that you can get, you know, like typical roguelike relics or whatever that just like provide passive buffs. And so there could be a way to go to the shop maybe and like, oh, boss health is reduced by 10% or whatever. So there could be other ways that I could allow the player to choose to make the boss fight difficult. But I think, yeah, maybe just offering a straight up boss difficulty selection, like with the other combat selection, is maybe I shouldn't do that. So in Inkbound, you can pick easier or harder depending on where you are in your build, but the bosses are set. So if you go easy all the way, you might not be strong enough. Okay, yeah, I do like that. But if you go too difficult too quickly, you'll not make the boss fight either. Okay, yeah, so it sounds like I'll have to look at that game and see how they do it. But that sounds like kind of what I've got going on here. If the boss fight is dynamic, I could drag out lower builds, i.e. games like Slay the Spire. If you get unlucky, then the run's over, onto the next, versus making easy fights where the player slowly falls behind. Yeah, okay, you guys have persuaded me. You guys have persuaded me. I'm going to make the boss fight static. I mean, there's still going to be... I'm still going to have different boss fights, so you're not fighting the same boss every run, but you're not going to have a choice in which one you fight, and they're all going to be relatively on par with difficulty. I mean, that's the other problem, too, is that... So this is the other consideration maybe I should have mentioned, is that I want to enable all kinds of weird builds. Like, I want to steal an idea from the Bazaar, which is that if a fight goes long enough in that game, the Bazaar, then a sandstorm comes in that just starts doing massive damage over time equally to everyone. And that's just to prevent fights from basically like getting into a state where mathematically the fight just goes on infinitely. So the sandstorm is a way of just like ending it and forcing it to end so it doesn't run too long. So I wanted to do something like that in this game so that if a player wants to, they can make a build that's just purely defensive where they just out heal everything. They just stack health and they heal, and that would be a way of beating the game. And so, but the problem is, what happens if you get presented a boss fight that's like a hard counter to your build? That would feel really bad as well, right? So that's the thing. That's one problem. I mean, I'm not there yet. That's not a problem that I have yet. But if I develop the game in the way that I'm trying to develop it, that could very well be a problem in the future. So that would feel terrible too. Like, oh yeah, I've got this really wacky build that's purely defensive and I'm just stacking shields and health. And oh, I've faced the boss that is somehow a hard counter to this build and all that work for nothing, right? So that's the other thing. Different items could lead to maybe different kinds of shortcuts. And diff boss provides stuff like that, more better pathways. That's an interesting concept as well. Yeah. Yeah, that is a very interesting idea. Okay, we changed his mind. That means we're all at game devs at this project now. I expect 1%. I will continue producing YouTube content for you. How's that? That's the deal. Take it or leave it. You can draw from Binding of Isaac. Each floor has an allowed pool of static bosses, but there can be variations of the bosses that are more difficult or just different enough. Yeah, that's a good point. What if the difficulty of the counters you choose determine how soon you fight the main boss and having challenges to try to beat the main boss in a certain amount of encounters? That is a great idea too. Man, you guys are like, these are all fantastic ideas. Give the player choice. Maybe you can pick between bosses. Yeah, so maybe that's the middle ground here. Like, you can choose which boss you want to fight, but none of them are necessarily harder or easier than the other one. So it basically becomes up to you to be able to know or analyze which boss is likely to be the most difficult just purely based on the boss's build. And so you can have a choice of which boss you fight, but it's not necessarily going to be one's easier than another just from a numbers perspective, right? I don't know. I have to think about this. Help out specific builds. Yeah, that's the thing. If you choose easy, you have more encounters until final static boss. Yeah. Yeah, I like that idea too. YouTube content I'll take. Yeah. Have a list of tier 1 boss pool. Yeah, well, that's what I'm going to do, but it's like, yeah, so a list of tier 1 bosses, list of tier 2 bosses, list of tier 3 bosses. I don't think that solves the problem, though, of what happens if it randomly picks a boss that counters your build. I think maybe I'll have to give the player a choice. I don't know. Maybe we'll start simpler. I'm maybe complicating it too much. Maybe what I'll do is I'll just start with a list, just randomly choose from the boss pool of a boss to fight, and if the game develops to a point where the bosses being chosen are basically hard counters to a build, then I can think of ways around that at that point. But maybe I'll just start with the boss encounters as they are. Just pick a boss encounter and be done. Was I supposed to do something today? Okay, no. Okay. I don't know. I'm not paying attention to my calendar. Sometimes I get surprised about things I have to do, and I'm like, wait, I didn't know that was happening today. Anyway. Get options and modifiers for the fight. That's a good idea. Is there a way to dynamically arrange the difficulty or the boss build based on the player choices? It could, but doing things algorithmically like that is very, like, iffy. So you have to burn build going. Probably don't pick the boss with burn protection. Right. But what if I want to test my burn build against a burn counter? Sounds like a design decision, making sure no boss hard encounters any given build. And see how much my effort has paid off. Yeah, I think you're right, Dusty. I think maybe the approach I should take first is, so we're going to do a static boss. The static boss will be chosen from a pool of equal difficulty bosses. And then I'll start by making sure not to create a boss that's like a hard counter to anything in particular. And then, yeah, we'll just see how the game develops from there. And make those decisions later on. Okay, I like that. So let's see. We'll keep going for a little bit. I know we're going longer than I usually go, but feeling all right. So let's just go ahead and keep going. So state boss, enter state boss. Combat selection event state machine. So I don't want to do this. So I'm going to want a different boss selection state machine. Let's actually go to my board configuration editor here. I wonder if this still works. It does work. Okay. So let's create a boss build. So I'm going to need to do something else here. Let's do up in here, checkbox is boss. Okay, so we got a boss checkbox. Oh goodness, okay. Node, private checkbox, boss checkbox. We'll add that to the board configuration model. I actually don't ever use checkboxes, so I don't know what the proper property is here. Oh, nope, that's icons. Base button. Button pressed. Boss checkbox dot button pressed is equal to loaded board configuration model dot is boss. Okay. Let's see if this works. i.e. a boss can bypass an amount of shield, which makes it harder for casual builds to use a limited amount of shield, but the shield build has more shield than the boss overcomes. Yeah, that's a good idea. Time extended. Wacky builds could end up resulting in particular counters either, so imagine a boss equipment could maybe be changed. Yeah. I think we need a new boss named Yummers. Oh my goodness. Also slightly off topic, but after looking for a few streams, something I've noticed is that you always seem to go with the increased board size reward when it's an option. I'm curious if you thought about making it increase gradually throughout a run instead, because it seems a bit mandatory rather than being an interesting reward option. Yeah. I mean, I understand that, and that's something that I've thought about too, is like, it seems more powerful than the other options. Yeah, the problem is that it is very powerful because it's just like you get more cards on the board, but I thought it would be interesting for the player to have to make a choice between. I mean, it does end up, even with this limited example, it does end up being the case that at some point, if I keep taking the board size increases, my health kind of starts lagging behind where I become very vulnerable. So even the increased board size may not make me able to out damage an enemy board before it kills me. And so there's that tension that naturally develops there. But if I were to choose between increased board size and like an enchantment or whatever, I'd probably choose the increased board size. So I think the other thing that I originally thought when I was making this game is I could make the board not quadrilateral, meaning that I could have, if increased board size is selected, you actually just like get to add 2 cells to the board wherever you want to add them. So I could add like a cell here, and I could add a cell here if I wanted. And that way, if I'm only increasing the board size by a very slight amount, and I get a more interesting board shape where I can like stick a skeleton here, you know, and make use of that extra odd space there. So I still might do that. That might be a good way to balance it, because then I can increase the amount of board cells that you get as a reward as the game goes on without making it feel like it's a mandatory choice, because it's a very minimal buff, right? So I don't know. It's something that I got to play with for sure. I want a wave-based enemy spawning system. How do I approach it? Also alongside it is a story mode. I only want the waves contained by the player. I have a save manager that manages the player data. Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of ways to do it. I mean, I just have like an enemy manager that spawns all of the enemies, and you just have to basically just keep track of a couple of variables, like how many enemies do you want to spawn each wave, what's the enemy spawn growth for each wave. So you want a manager to handle all this, and then what you need to do is listen every time an enemy dies. In the wave manager, you'll want to like decrement some kind of counter that tells you when all of the enemies that are going to be spawned have been spawned and all of them have been killed, such that that counter is 0, then you can start the next wave. And then in terms of limiting the enemies to the player data, yeah, that's just a matter of like configuring that data. So, you know, if you have an integer that represents the stage the player's at, you could have like a dictionary that maps the integer to the list of enemies that can spawn. So that's the way I'd approach it. Have a boss component that could relate to WTV stat. I don't know what that means. WTV. Basically, the idea being that it's not super strong against that. Yeah, we'll see. Water check, take a sip, yeah. Board size permanently increases after each boss. Board upgrades gives temporary boost, perhaps. Now it's still powerful, but worse in the long run. Yeah, I could do that. I don't know. I have to think about it for sure. I have to think about it. But let's make a boss board here. Let's make it 6 by 6. No, that's probably too big. I don't have a whole lot of options either, so. Okay, let's make sure that this saved correctly. Oh no, did it not save correctly? Oh no! Am I gonna have to recreate this whole thing? Where's the 119? Oh, did I not? 119. It's not, okay. I didn't name it correctly. Shoot. Okay. I'm gonna have to recreate this. That's fine. Let's do it again. A lot of approaches you could take, even though of upgrading or empowering the slots themselves in the inventory, give them bonuses to the cards placed in them. That is another thing that I was thinking about too. Yeah, having cell-specific bonuses. But yeah, all stuff that I have to figure out at some point. Plan on making the runs seated. I can do that for sure. Yeah, I probably should. I think people like that because then they can just like community seeds or whatever. I like your idea for the boss to be like multiple boards at one time with no rest in between. Yeah, that's kind of, yeah. I don't know, there's so many different ways I could take this game. I'm going to have to think about it very carefully because there's so many cool things that can be done. I just need to play test some more and try some things and delete some things. And yeah, there's just going to be a lot happening here. I should probably see if this actually saves before I go any further. Okay, that did save. Cool. Okay, so I'll continue on. All right, there's the boss board. Oh, goodness. So yeah, I've like maximized everything basically. Okay. So I'll save that again just to make sure. So that the boss configurations are just JSON files here. All right, let's see if I can get this spawned. So I have to go to my run manager now. So I actually need to create a state machine for this, I think. Combat selection event state machine. So I'm just going to copy this. Boss event state machine. So pick board configurations. That's not good. Maybe actually. That'll work. So enemy board configuration manager, this is going to be non-boss IDs here. Pick board configurations. So I'm going to want to do, I need a way of choosing a boss tier at some point, but I'm going to, I have to figure out how to scale the boss at some point. So I'm just going to do scaled boss configuration model, scaled board configuration model, pick boss board configuration. Let's create a loot table. We'll just do this for now. So this is just creating a scaled board configuration model. There's no scaling actually being done, so it's just loading that configuration, that boss configuration, and then sending it back. So this boss event state machine, let's pick boss board configuration. this is done now, so we're gonna do, we can actually merge these things. Oh, I'm not passing in the context? Okay, that's fine. Create enemy board, selected board configuration, emit enemy board. Let's just call this boss board created, just to be sure. Boss board created, change state cleanup. We don't need these things anymore. Create enemy board. I probably should unify this as well, but that's okay. We'll have to add the currency rewards and everything in this at some point. Selected board configuration. Pick boss board. Why is this not working? Oh, did I make this private on accident? Oops. Okay. Probably a question that could bring in some bias, but should I learn a GDScript seriously as well? I mean, I go through your C# course, but does it mean I don't need to bother with GDScript course? Depending on what kind of story you added. Oh, this is different. Okay. I don't think it hurts to learn GDScript. I mean, GDScript is perfectly capable, but if you are comfortable in C#, then you can stick with that. I don't think, I don't know. I can't really answer the question of should you learn it. It can't hurt, and it's not that difficult, especially if you're working in C# and you're comfortable with that. It's just a different syntax, and it's got some different stylistic things, but generally speaking, it's pretty easy to pick up. So I don't think, you know, it all depends. If you're fine with C#, then you probably don't need to seriously learn GDScript if you just want to stick with C#, but like I said, it can't hurt. So, and it's also not that difficult. Depending on what kind of story you added, different objectives could be added to affect how the boss fights proceed. Yes, I have to think about that too. Story. I have to think about story. Okay, so now let's go to the run manager here. Do I have state boss? Yeah, enter state boss. So where's my combat selection? So I'm going to take this. Let's do this. Enter state boss, new boss, event state machine, boss event state machine. I think I need to enter the state combat preparation as well. So I actually don't need to do this. Well, boss board created. Yeah, let's do that. Private void on boss board created. This dot enemy board is equal to enemy board. Combat currency reward. We'll just set this to 0. Enemy board dot died. Board died. Okay, so yeah, I don't know how this whole loop is going to go, but on boss board created. Wait. On enemy board created. Yeah, this needs to go. Boss board event state machine finished. Okay. A little bit convoluted, but let's see if this works. State boss. We're going to start off on the boss state, and I just want to make sure this all works before I go through the whole flow. Look at that. There's the boss board. Let's see how badly this destroys me immediately. Nice. Okay, run manager 343. I don't think I need to handle that right now. Enemy board dot fade out. Why does it not have a reference to the enemy board? Object reference not set to instance of object. Why? Well, I'll figure that out later. It looks like it's going to work though. So let's play the game through the way that it is right now, and we'll see how I fare on that boss board. I hope it works. I think it should work. Okay, and I won't use the God mode button. The other problem right now is it's very unattractive to take these big cards at early on because the board isn't big enough. So speaking of board not big enough, let's increase the board size. Let's do enchantment. I like the echo enchant on this one. So we'll do this, we'll do this. Let's try the hardest one. Begin. Oh yeah, this is gonna be easy. Boom, boom. Okay, more ritual cards. Let's try this. There's another axe. Ooh, that's an upgraded tier axe. Let's take that. Can I alchemize? No, I can't. Let's do a max health increase 15. Increase board size, no alchemy. Let's take another booster actually. More alchemical. Ooh, a viper. I'll take that. Embalming fluid, incense, scarab. Let's... This scale is not working either. I have to figure... Okay, so there's something wrong. Tier scaling not working for axe. I had this problem with a different one the other day. I don't think my tier scaling is working. This axe does the same amount of damage as that axe, which is unfortunate. 4, 4, 2. Yeah, that should be doing like 3 damage. I got a lot of bugs to fix. Oh well. I'll just learn this so that I can work well in a game jam that needs me to do web export or not. Yeah, that's a good idea. I usually do GD script for my game jam so I can do web exports like you said. Take the phylactery, booster, add enchantment. Let's put poison enchant on this. All poison applied is increased by 1. Increase board size. Let's put this here. We'll get rid of this axe and put that here. Let's do this upgraded one. Sweet. More minion cards. A bell. Embalming fluid. Let's take that. Max health increase. Let's do alchemize cards. And what do I want to alchemize? Let's alchemize both of these. Echo, echo. Dang it, I'm losing the poison one. But I think that this will be good. Oh yeah, let's do this. Get the adjacency bonus on both ends of the minion. Increase board size, yes. Skeleton Warrior 3. This scaling is probably not correct, but we're going with it. Ooh, let's take that. Can I upgrade a card? Yes. Here we go. Upgrade the Viper. Tier 3 Viper. Boom. Increase board size again. Yes. So now is the case. Let's see. I'm going to... Oh no, I don't lose that adjacency bonus. Okay, hold on. Do this. Boom. Yes. Now I can fit the embalming fluid on there and I don't lose any adjacency bonuses here. Perfect. Let's fight this one. I need to figure out why the tier scaling isn't working, but let's see what the boss fight looks like. Sweet. More minion, more ritual. Let's do some more ritual because I got to get that embalming fluid rolling. Yeah, there's a ritual. Boom. Max health increase. Let's do that. Let's max that out. And enchantment to card. Let's do this actually. Echo enchant. Let's do echo on the embalming fluid. So I get more shield. And then we'll do Skeleton Warrior 4. Let's see how this works. Oh wait. Oh no. I didn't change the I didn't actually invoke the logic to change into the boss state, so we're never gonna get there. Dang it. Oh man. Can't believe it. Thank you so much again for the 20,000 IDR, Snupbill. Very much appreciate that. Thank you, thank you. 40,000 IDR this chat. 2 yummers. We're all lucky today. We got 2 yummers. Random stupid devil's... Thank you again, Snupbill. I appreciate that. Random stupid devil's advocate kind of idea. What if you could increase... what if you can't increase the board size and for you to lean more into alchemizing and enchanting while you go direct to your build? Just a thought. I like the idea. So maybe limit the board size to this and then have to like find a way to make everything work with alchemy and whatnot. I do like that idea. But I also like the idea of the player having a really big board with all kinds of stuff happening. That can be equally fun. So yeah, but that is an interesting idea for sure. I'm gonna think about that. Maybe I can do a... I mean, that might go hand in hand with automatically increasing the board size over time. So if you don't give the player any control over their board size, then that would definitely force the player to squeeze more power out of the limited space that they have by using the alchemy system. I think that's a good point. If I want the player to lean into the alchemy system, then reducing some of the player control over the board size would make that more appealing. All right, we're gonna try this again. Pog morning, everyone. Welcome back, Sanzo. Tell the player the alchemy system is like Minecraft. They'll love it. Okay. Okay. Okay, so now I'm actually switching into the boss state. Let's give this another try. I was having such a good build going on. Okay, we got the axe back. Alchemize cards, max health increase. Let's do another booster. Let's do another minion. Ooh, let's take the heal. Add enchantment to card. Let's do the echo again. I only have 3 enchantments, so that's the thing. Echo on that one. Let's fight the Viper. Ooh, the Viper's actually a little bit leveled up, but that's all right. It's gonna die anyway. More relic cards. Let's take this one. Increase board size. Increase board size again. Unfortunately, I don't have enough room to fit that voodoo doll on there, but that's okay. Let's see how this one goes. Perfect. More alchemical cards. Let's do it. I like the Viper. We'll take the Viper. Add enchantment to card. Booster. Let's alchemize some cards. Oh, I can't fit the Viper on there. Well, we might as well alchemize these 2 things then. Echo with the heal. Yes, indeed. Thank you, thank you. I need more cards, so I'm going to go for another booster here. Ooh, ceremonial dagger. There we go. Yes, Viper here. Boom. Okay. This'll work. I need to get my health up. So this is what I'm talking about. Like, I've been neglecting my health. I need to definitely get that going. Okay, health is coming next no matter what. I need to get some health before the boss. Ooh, big Viper upgrade here. There we go. Max health increase, update that. Let's do another one. Okay. All right. Perfect. All right. More alchemical cards. I'm trying to get some more poison stuff. I'm not going to get it, apparently. Although a scarab would be nice. Actually, let's take the upgraded skeleton, I guess. Put the skeleton there. Increase the board size. We can put the skeleton back. Alchemize cards. I'm kind of tempted to alchemize these two. 4 damage, apply 2 poison. Yes, thank you. That's great. Okay. Like, this axe should be really deadly right here, but it's not scaling properly, so I need to figure that out. Boom. All right, let's see if it works. We're getting to the boss here. Ooh, I can do this one again. Nice. Increase board size again. We can put that on there. Actually, I wonder if now is a good time to try to fit the... Can I do that? I don't think I can. I don't think I can. I'm not going to be able to fit the voodoo doll on here. Okay, that's fine. Let's just take some more cards, I guess. Let's see if I can get a phylactery. Boom, phylactery. There we go. All right, boss battle. Here we go. Here we go. For the record, I don't play or like Minecraft. I think it's icky. Okay, record noted. Hello, Newness Games. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, any bets? Anyone? Am I going to be able to beat the boss? What do you think? Place your bets now. Place your bets now. No bets? All right. We're going to be going to begin. I bet two McDoubles, no cheese. All right, here we go. Bets are in. Bets are closed. Let's go. Boom. I think I'm going to win. This poor boss has no time to do anything. Okay, I won. I think. Yeah, the boss is not doing that much damage, actually. Oh, it died, though, but it's not going anywhere. Wait, why didn't it die? Why didn't it die? Okay, well, I won. I don't know why it's not dying. Okay, well, anyway. Why did it not die? There's literally nothing different about this. Why didn't it die? Enemy board died. Oh, is enemy board dead? It probably never was set to false. Yeah, enter state combat preparation is where this gets set to false. So I need to put is enemy board dead when I enter the boss state as well. Oh, that's unfortunate. But I won, so yeah. It didn't die, so I win. Yeah, that's true. I mean, we need the refs in here to figure it out. I didn't realize the board was immortal. I know. Oh my gosh. It's this as enemy board dead. It's, yeah, so I need to fix this. To do... should not have to be reset in 2 places. 2 places. Okay, but I think basic boss board picking in place. So I think that's fine. I need to obviously work on the balance quite a bit, but I think the flow is working well. This boss board probably needs to have a bunch of its items upgraded as well, because these are all like tier 1 items or tier 1 cards, but should probably have a smattering of tier 2, tier 3 cards. But I think what I need to do next probably is actually just figure out why the tier scaling is not working for a lot of items, because that's going to really kind of affect how the progression feels, right? Because if I get a tier 3 axe out of a booster pack, but it doesn't make any noticeable difference in my power because it's not working, then I can't make an accurate decision about like how the pacing feels, right? So I need to probably do an audit of all of this tier scaling and make sure that everything is working as intended, and fix any issues where it's not. And that means that I probably also want to figure this one out too. So that's going to be a little bit of architectural work that I'm going to have to do. The refs say I'm owed 2 McDoubles, no cheese. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. All right, well, that's going to be it for the stream today, everyone. Went long, an hour long today, so hopefully that was entertaining. But yeah, thank you all for your opinions and your input and for thinking things through with me. Again, if you want to support my work, Gunforged is available for sale. The link to the Steam description or the Steam page is in the description below. Gunforged is also a part of 2 bundles now, so you can get 2 games at a discount, with Gunforged being included as one of those games. I also have my Udemy courses available for sale if you want to learn how to build a complete game in the Godot engine. Definitely check that out. Again, everything is linked in the description below. I very much appreciate your support. Thank you again for the super chats, Snup Bill, and thank you to all the VOD watchers and lurkers out there. I know you're out there. And yeah, I'll be back tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern to work on this game some more. All right, have a good day, everyone, and I will see you tomorrow. All right, bye-bye.